The silk was alive. That was Naomi's first thought as the dark green fabric slid over her skin, cool and impossibly smooth. It was the color of a forest floor after a storm, a shade so deep it seemed to drink the light of the exclusive Ginza boutique. In the gilded mirror, she saw a stranger. Not Naomi, the textile history graduate student on a research trip, but a woman carved from shadow and elegance, a queen in borrowed finery. The dress was a masterpiece of bias-cut construction, clinging and flowing in a way that felt both ancient and utterly modern. She was so lost in the technical marvel of it, in the sheer artistry, that she almost missed the sound of the dressing room curtain being ripped aside. A woman stood there, her face a mask of pinched disapproval. Ms. Tanaka, the boutique manager. She was impeccably dressed in a severe black suit, her posture ramrod straight. Her eyes, however, were not impeccable. They were sharp, cruel little stones, and they raked over Naomi from head to toe, lingering on her brown skin against the emerald silk. "What do you think you're doing?" The question was quiet, but it sliced through the hushed atmosphere of the shop. Naomi's hands flew to the delicate straps. "I was just trying it on. The sign didn't say it was reserved." "Some things do not require signs," Ms. Tanaka hissed, her voice dropping lower, laced with venom. "That dress is haute couture. It is for our most distinguished clientele. It is for royals only." She took a step forward, her hand outstretched as if to physically tear the garment from Naomi's body. "Take it off. Now. You are going to damage it." The humiliation was a physical blow, hot and swift. Every other patron in the store, women dripping in diamonds and quiet luxury, had stopped browsing. Their eyes were on her. On the black girl in the dress she had no business touching. Naomi's confidence, her academic knowledge of fabric and form, all of it evaporated, leaving her feeling small and exposed. She opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, but the words caught in her throat. That was when the bell above the door chimed. A silence fell over the boutique that was different from before. It was not the quiet of polite shopping. It was the absolute, weighted silence of held breath. The air grew cold, heavy with a sudden, predatory stillness. Naomi didn't need to turn to know someone of immense importance had entered. She could feel it in the way Ms. Tanaka froze, her face draining of color. He moved like the room owed him space. He was tall, dressed in a charcoal suit so perfectly tailored it seemed a part of him. Ink, intricate and dark, crept from beneath the starched white cuff at his wrist and curled around the base of his neck, just visible above his collar. But it was his eyes that captured her. They were dark, flat, and ancient, holding a chilling lack of emotion as they swept the room, cataloging everything in a single, surgical glance. They landed on Ms. Tanaka, then on Naomi, still standing exposed in the green dress. He took a slow, deliberate step forward. The scent of expensive cologne, oud and something like cold smoke, drifted in his wake. "Tanaka," he said. His voice was not loud, but it was a low vibration that commanded the very air. "Explain this." Ms. Tanaka bowed low, a jerky, panicked movement. "Sir." "Forgive me. This person was handling the Miyazawa gown without permission. I was simply correcting her." The man's gaze remained fixed on Naomi. He took in the dress, her posture, the defiant hurt in her eyes. He ignored the manager completely. "Is that true?" he asked Naomi, his English perfect, without accent. Naomi found her voice. "She told me this dress was for royals only." A flicker of something, not amusement, something colder, passed through his eyes. He turned his head slowly, the movement economical and lethal, back to the manager. "This is my boutique, Tanaka. I decide who is royal here." He took another step, standing directly in front of the trembling woman. "You have been with this house for 10 years. In that time, you have learned nothing of its most important rule." "Sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Beauty does not discriminate," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper that was more terrifying than any shout. "But you do. You are an embarrassment to the name you work under. Get out." Ms. Tanaka stared, her mouth agape. "Sir, You are fired, he clarified, his tone utterly flat, as if discussing the weather. Leave your key. Do not return. She didn't need to be told a third time. With a final, venomous glare at Naomi, she turned and practically fled, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the marble floor. The other patrons suddenly found their shoes incredibly interesting. The silence returned, thick and charged. The man now stood before Naomi. He was closer than she expected, close enough for her to see the faint, silvery line of a scar that bisected his left eyebrow. His gaze dropped to the dress again, and for the first time, his expression changed. A shadow of something unreadable and deeply personal crossed his features. The manager was wrong, he said, his voice softer now, but no less intense. That dress was not made for royals. He looked back up, his eyes locking with hers. It was made for a queen. Before she could process the words, he turned to one of the velvet display cases. With a quiet click, he opened it. His hand, elegant and steady, emerged with a crown. It wasn't a tiara. It was a proper coronet, a circlet of what looked like white gold fashioned into interlocking branches, studded with diamonds that glittered like trapped starlight. He held it out to her. Try this on, he commanded softly. It completes the look. Naomi could only stare, her mind reeling. The fired manager, the dress, the impossible man standing before her. This was Ryo Ishikawa, she realized with a dizzying lurch. She'd seen his name in financial reports, a phantom who owned half of Ginza's luxury real estate. The whispers said he owned the other half, too, the half that operated in shadows and dealt in debts of blood. I can't, she stammered. You can, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He stepped into her space, and with a touch so gentle it was unnerving, he took the crown and placed it on her head. The metal was cool against her hair. In the mirror, the diamonds caught the light, scattering rainbows across her skin. She looked regal. She looked powerful. She looked like she belonged. There, Ryo said, his voice a low murmur near her ear. A perfect fit, he met her eyes in the reflection. You will wear it tonight. To the gala at the Imperial Hotel. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an invitation. It was a statement of fact. I'm not going to any gala, Naomi said, finding a sliver of her old self. You are, he replied, his gaze unwavering. You are going as my guest. In my dress. Wearing my crown, he paused, and the chill returned to his voice, subtle but unmistakable. And you will not be taking it off. The unspoken threat hung between them, as beautiful and as dangerous as the diamonds on her head. She was no longer a customer in a boutique. She was property. And the most dangerous man in Tokyo had just claimed her. The Imperial Hotel was not a building, it was a kingdom. Gold leaf and crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, and the air hummed with the quiet, dangerous frequency of immense power. Men in exquisitely cut suits spoke in hushed tones, their words carrying the weight of empires. The women on their arms were like rare, beautiful birds, draped in silk and jewels. And then there was Naomi, in the dark green dress, a diamond crown on her head, walking beside the predator who ruled them all. Ryo's hand rested on the small of her back, a possessive, proprietary weight. It was not a comforting gesture. It was a brand. Every eye in the grand ballroom followed them, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and calculation in their gazes. He guided her through the crowd with an unnerving grace, the sea of powerful figures parting before him, as if by an invisible force. Smile, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. You are here to be admired. I'm here because you wouldn't let me leave a dressing room, she countered, her voice low. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, gone as quickly as it appeared. A minor distinction. He led her to a secluded alcove overlooking the hotel gardens. Away from the prying eyes, the tension in his shoulders seemed to ease by a fraction. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and the mask of cold authority slipped, revealing that same flicker of deep, personal pain she'd seen in the boutique. That color, he began, his voice rough. It suited her, too. Her? Naomi asked, her curiosity overriding her fear. His gaze drifted to the gardens, to a past she couldn't see. Akane. She was a business partner. She loved green. He spoke the name like it was a shard of glass in his throat. She wore a dress like that to a meeting 5 years ago. I told her it was a risk, that the color was too memorable. A rival clan leader, a man with a cruel smile and eyes like a snake, approached their alcove. He bowed slightly to Ryo, a gesture of respect that felt more like a challenge. Ishikawa. I am surprised to see you. And with such a lovely companion, his eyes slid over Naomi, lingering on the green dress. That color brings back memories, does it not? A pity about Akane. Such a waste. Ryo's entire body went rigid. The air around him dropped 20 degrees. You would do well to watch your tongue, Sato, Ryo said, his voice lethally soft. Memories can be sharp. Sato chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Indeed. Some are sharper than others. The memory of a failed protection detail, for instance. He gave Naomi a final, dismissive look and sauntered away, melting back into the crowd. The silence Ryo left in his wake was terrifying. He had failed to protect Akane. That was his wound, the shame he carried. This rival knew it, and he had just used it as a weapon. This wasn't a party. It was a battlefield. Suddenly, the crystal chandeliers flickered. A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. Then, the lights went out completely, plunging the hall into absolute darkness, punctuated by panicked screams. In the same instant, Ryo moved. He grabbed Naomi, pulling her down behind the heavy velvet curtain of the alcove, his body a shield over hers. The hand on her back was firm, steady. Stay down. Do not make a sound, he breathed into her ear. The distinctive, suppressed cough of silenced gunshots echoed through the room. The sound was followed by the shattering of glass and more screams. It was an ambush, an assassination attempt. They were trapped. Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs, but her mind, honed by years of academic focus, started working. She could smell the acrid scent of gunpowder. She could feel the vibration of running feet through the floorboards. She had one chance, one moment of chaos to run. The exit to the gardens was just feet away. She could slip out, disappear into the Tokyo night, and leave this nightmare behind. But as she tensed to move, she felt the warmth of blood seeping through Ryo's jacket onto her arm. He'd been hit. He grunted a low, controlled sound of pain, but his body remained a firm barrier over hers. He was wounded, protecting her, a woman he barely knew. In that instant, Naomi made a choice. She would not run. She peered through a tiny gap in the curtains. 3 men dressed as waiters were moving methodically through the darkness, their weapons fitted with silencers. They were professionals. But they were looking for Ryo among the panicked crowd, not behind a curtain. Her eyes scanned the alcove. A heavy, silver ice bucket sat on a nearby table. It was her only weapon. They're sweeping the room, she whispered, her voice surprisingly steady. 3 of them. Ryo shifted slightly, his breathing shallow. I see them. They haven't checked here yet, she continued, her mind racing. When they get closer, I'm going to throw the ice bucket through the window. It'll draw their attention. No, he commanded. You will stay put and let them find you bleeding in a corner? I don't think so, she retorted. She was no longer a civilian. She was a participant. As the footsteps grew closer, she gripped the heavy silver bucket. On my count, 3, 2. Before she could say 1, he grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron. When you throw it, he said, his voice a low, urgent growl. Run for the East Service corridor. Do not stop. He pressed something small, hard, and metallic into her other hand. A key. Then he let go. Naomi didn't hesitate. She hurled the ice bucket with all her strength. It crashed through the plate glass window leading to the gardens with an explosive shatter that cut through the chaos. As predicted, the 3 gunmen immediately spun toward the sound, firing into the darkness. In that split second of distraction, Ryo moved from the shadows like a wraith, a short blade appearing in his hand as if from nowhere. The fight was brutal, silent, and over in seconds. Naomi was already running, adrenaline singing in her veins. She found the service corridor, fumbled with the key, and burst into a sterile, brightly lit hallway, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The green dress was torn at the hem, the diamond crown askew. She had crossed a line. She had chosen to stay, chosen to help, and in doing so, she had tied her fate to the bleeding Yakuza boss in the ballroom. There was no going back. The silence in the hallway was absolute, but she knew, with a terrifying certainty, that he would find her. He found her exactly where he'd told her to go, at the end of the service corridor that led to a private underground garage. He wasn't bleeding anymore, at least not visibly, but he moved with a stiff precision that spoke of immense control over pain. His suit jacket was gone, revealing the breathtakingly intricate tapestry of tattoos that covered his torso and arms beneath a white button-down shirt. Dragons and koi fish swirled in a riot of color and shadow. He looked less like a businessman and more like a mythic demon brought to life. He didn't speak. He simply took her arm and led her to a sleek, black car that sat waiting, its engine humming quietly. The journey was silent, a tense, claustrophobic ride through the glittering, indifferent streets of Tokyo. They arrived at a minimalist skyscraper that pierced the clouds, and an elevator took them to a penthouse that was less a home and more a fortress in the sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panoramic view of the city, a carpet of jewels laid out at their feet. "You are a target now," he said, finally breaking the silence. He stood by the window, his back to her, a silhouette against the city lights. "Sato will not stop. He knows I left with you. He will see you as a weakness. So, what happens now? You keep me here until he's dealt with?" Naomi asked, her voice tight. He turned to face her. "I keep you here until you are no longer a liability." The words were cold, clinical, but his eyes told a different story. There was a flicker of something that looked like respect. "You were calm back there. You saw an opportunity and created a distraction. Most would have frozen. Most people don't get caught in the crossfire of a mafia war." She shot back, the adrenaline beginning to curdle into anger and fear. "I want to go home." "Home is no longer safe for you," he stated, as if it were an undeniable law of physics. "My enemies know what you look like. They will be looking for you. Here, you are protected." Days bled into a week. Naomi was a prisoner in a gilded cage, with a view of a world she couldn't touch. Rio was a ghost in his own home, coming and going at odd hours, his face a mask of stone. But she watched him. She saw the way his soldiers deferred to him with a reverence that bordered on worship. She saw the exhaustion etched in the lines around his eyes when he thought no one was looking. And he watched her, too. He'd find her in the library, surrounded by his collection of rare art books, and would stand in the doorway for a long moment, just observing, his expression unreadable. The tension between them was a living thing, a tightly wound coil of unspoken words and charged glances. One night, a violent thunderstorm broke over the city, the penthouse rattling with each concussive blast of thunder. The power flickered and died, plunging the apartment into the same disorienting darkness as the ballroom. Naomi gasped, the memory of the attack rushing back. Before she could panic, a hand found hers in the dark. It was Rio's. His fingers wrapped around hers, a steady, grounding presence. "It is just the storm," he said, his voice close. They stood like that for a long moment, in the darkness, connected only by their hands. The silence between them was not empty. It was filled with everything they couldn't say. "I told myself I was staying because I had no choice," she whispered into the dark, the admission torn from her. "That's not true anymore." He was silent for so long she thought he hadn't heard her. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "You see things no one else does. You see the flaw in the attack, the moment of opportunity. That makes you dangerous." He paused. "To them and to me." That was his confession. Not of love, but of something far more perilous. An acknowledgement that she had breached his defenses in a way no bullet ever could. The attack came 2 nights later. It was not a subtle ambush. It was a full frontal assault. Sato was done playing games. The sound of an explosion on a lower floor was their first warning. Alarms blared. Rio's men were shouting orders. Rio burst into her room, his face grim, a pistol in his hand. "We have to move.
Now."
They were making their way down a service stairwell when two of Sato's men appeared below them, blocking their path. Rio pushed her behind him, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, another man appeared on the landing above, his gun aimed directly at Naomi. They were trapped. "The woman, Ishikawa," the man above yelled. "Give us the woman, and we let you walk." Rio's choice was stark. His life or hers. He didn't even hesitate. He started to lower his weapon. In that moment of surrender, Naomi's mind raced. She looked at the man above them. He was wearing a tactical vest, standard issue. But from her studies of historical textiles, she recognized the weave on the straps. It was an older, cheaper synthetic blend, known to become brittle when exposed to certain solvents. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble. In the pocket of the coat Rio had given her was a small, elegant bottle of perfume he'd left on her dresser. It was a high-end brand, its primary component a powerful, alcohol-based solvent. She acted on pure instinct. She uncapped the bottle and threw its contents straight into the man's face. He screamed, dropping his gun to claw at his burning eyes. The distraction was all Rio needed. The next few seconds were a blur of motion and deafening noise. When it was over, the two men below were down, and Rio was standing over the whimpering man on the landing. He looked down at Naomi, his chest rising and falling, his eyes blazing with a terrifying, wild intensity. He was looking at her as if he'd never seen her before. She hadn't just saved him. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. She had participated in the violence. The final confrontation took place in a place of commerce, not war. A vast, empty warehouse at the Tokyo docks that belonged to Sato. He had Naomi. He had used one of Rio's own men, a traitor, to get to her. Rio stood alone at the entrance, the terms clear. His life and the leadership of his clan, in exchange for hers. Inside, Naomi was tied to a chair in the center of the cavernous space. Sato stood before her, smiling. He is a fool. To give up an empire for a woman he just met. Akane would be so disappointed. Naomi met his gaze, her fear a cold knot in her stomach, but her mind was sharp. She saw the shipping manifests tacked to a nearby wall, the chemical symbols for volatile industrial cleaning agents. She saw the faulty wiring sparking near a pile of solvent-soaked rags. She saw a plan. When Rio walked in unarmed, his hands raised, Sato laughed. An honorable man to the end. "Let her go, Sato," Rio said, his voice calm, but his eyes were fixed on Naomi, a silent conversation passing between them. "I don't think so," Sato sneered, pressing the cold barrel of a pistol to Naomi's temple. "I think I will take what is yours, just as you took my territory in Shinjuku." "That territory was never yours to begin with," Naomi said, her voice clear and strong, drawing Sato's attention. "Just like this warehouse won't be yours for much longer," she nodded her head almost imperceptibly towards the sparking wires. Rio saw it. He understood instantly. It was a signal. A desperate, suicidal, brilliant plan. He had to trust her. He took a deliberate step to his left, drawing the guard's attention with him. It was all the opening she needed. With a powerful surge of strength, Naomi kicked her chair backwards, toppling it over. As she hit the floor, she kicked out again, sending a nearby crate of machine parts crashing into the wall, severing the faulty wires. Sparks rained down on the solvent-soaked rags. The world erupted in a flash of white-hot flame. The explosion threw everyone to the ground. In the chaos of smoke and fire, Rio moved. He was no longer a man. He was a force of nature. By the time the flames began to lick at the ceiling, Sato and his men were dispatched, and Rio was cutting the ropes from Naomi's wrists. He pulled her to her feet, his hands framing her face, his eyes searching hers with a desperate intensity. The fire alarms blared around them. "Are you hurt?" "No," she breathed, her body trembling. He didn't offer comfort. He offered something more potent. "In my world, loyalty is a debt paid in blood," he said, his voice thick with smoke and emotion.
What you did, that is not debt.
That is a claim. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You are a queen without a kingdom. They left the burning warehouse behind, the sirens growing louder in the distance. The cost had been paid. Rio's traitorous lieutenant was dead, a reminder that victory in his world was always steeped in loss. The diamond crown was gone, likely melted in the fire. The beautiful green dress was a memory. He did not take her back to the penthouse. He took her back to the Ginza boutique. It was closed, empty, the silence profound after the chaos of the fire. The spot where the green dress had hung was now vacant. Rio walked behind the counter and retrieved a single, ornate brass key. He held it out to her, laying it flat on his palm. "This place is yours," he said, his voice quiet but absolute. "A kingdom of your own." He looked at her, and the final wall around him crumbled, revealing the man beneath the monster. "But my empire, that is ours. If you will have it." It was not a proposal of marriage. It was an offer of a throne built on violence, loyalty, and a dangerous, undeniable bond forged in fire. The choice was hers. To take the key and step into his world forever, or to walk away and try to forget the man who saw a queen when everyone else saw a girl in a borrowed dress. Naomi looked from his dark, waiting eyes to the key in his hand. She slowly raised her fingers, the cool metal an inch from her skin, the weight of her future, of their future, resting in the space between.